What up, what up, what up, everybody? My name is Alex Shapiro, and welcome back to another episode of the Windy City Podcast here. We've got a big show for you all today. The Blackhawks are back. The Bulls are back. And of course, we have to talk Chicago Bears. They made a huge free agent signing. So, again, we got it all for you. Blackhawks 5-3-2, Bulls 4-0, Bears, well, they lost, but hey, maybe CJ Gardner Johnson is the man who can shore up the defense in the middle. All that and more. Don't go anywhere. All right, so thanks to Greg Boysen, who joins me now. He is the site expert for Blackhawk Up. That is where you will find our Blackhawks coverage on Fansided. Greg, how you doing, man?
We're doing all right. Much better than I expected at this point of the NHL season.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me. Let's start. I mean, right? You said you're doing great. The Blackhawks are 5-3-2 after 10 games. Kind of surprising to me a little bit. Like I thought the Blackhawks would be better, but I didn't know that it would be like this, especially after kind of the slow start. So just in your eyes, what have been the keys for the Blackhawks hot start this year?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, it's the goaltending, especially Spencer Knight. He's been incredible. And Arvid Soderblom's been good in his 3 games too. He's made the saves that he's supposed to. That's really all you want out of your backup. But Spencer Knight has been uh, absolutely incredible. One of the best goalies in the league. He's been able to cover up a lot of the Blackhawks' blemishes earlier in the season. It's to the point where I think people should start talking about him possibly being the third goaltender for Team USA at the Olympics. That's how good he's been. I mean, I know the top 2 spots are locked in with Connor Hellebuyck of the Jets, who the Hawks will see tonight, and Jake Ottinger of the Stars, but that third one is wide open. Last year for Four Nations, it was Jeremy Swayman of the Bruins, but he's not been great. He wasn't even great last year, so I think you could start that discussion, but he's been awesome. Worth the trade from last year, worth every penny that they gave him in his contract extension. Do I expect him to be this great through 82 games? Probably not.
Mm.
Uh, Hopefully there'll be a couple games this year later on where the team bails him out. Maybe he has a rough night and gives up 4 or 5, but the Hawks score 6 and win anyway. They owe him at least one of those so far. So Spencer Knight has been the biggest key. The team speed has also been a problem for a lot of teams this year. I think they caught some teams off guard about how fast they were early in the season. Teams will have to be able to adjust to that. We saw the Kings out over the weekend make adjustments and be able to neutralize that speed. So I think they kind of put the blueprint out for the rest of the league. And third and foremost, it's uh, Jeff Blashill too. He's been really good. When the hire was first made, I think a lot of people were kind of like, Jeff Blashill, whatever. He was in Detroit. They were bad. But after getting to talk to him a few times and I reached out to a few people that covered him for years in Detroit, I felt a lot better about it. And then you just watch the way he works and the way he communicates. The results speak for themselves. I mean, he puts players in positions to succeed, and that's all you want your coach to do.
Yeah, it's just speaking of Blashill, it's kind of interesting, right? Like the Detroit thing, they were like kind of at the end of a situation and tore everything down
Yeah.
while Blashill was first there, and now he gets the opportunity to be a part of the building back up, right? The Blackhawks have already gone through the we are super terrible and we're adding a lot of young talent, and obviously they still have a long ways to go before they are competing for Stanley Cups again. But at least they're at a different spot. You know, Bedard is in place, Nazar is in place, Levchinov is in place, Spencer Knight is in place. You mentioned something about Spencer Knight though that I want to follow up on because I agree. Like similarly, to Blashill conversation last year, I feel like people were like, Spencer Knight, I don't know, he's giving up these goals, but it's like actually the defense in front of him is pretty terrible, and a lot of situations just like he has no shot because the defense in front was not good. So I'm just curious, like, are you seeing that defense starting to come along, or is it really Spencer Knight? Like, obviously he's playing lights out, but are you noticing the defense in front start to improve a little bit as well?
Uh, I mean, It's improved over the last couple years, but that was such a low bar that it doesn't take a whole lot to clear it. It's going to improve as the season goes on, just because, the young guy. There's so many young defensemen out there right now that they're learning. I mean, we've already seen some improvement out of Levshunov over the first few games. Rinzel's kind of had a couple of games where you're like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, that's right. He's only 20. Like, yeah, he still has stuff to figure out." Overall, the team defense has been better, and that's part of Jeff Blashill's philosophy, where he's a big believer, and the Stanley Cup Blackhawks played the same way, where really good defense leads to a lot of offense. The best defense is having the puck all the time, which the Blackhawks never had the last couple of years. So it's getting better. I wouldn't say it's good. I wouldn't even say their team defense is average right now, but it's definitely improving, and that helps. But Knight's been there to bail them out when it breaks down. You still see some odd man rushes. You still see some breakdowns in the defensive zone. You still see some shifts where they're getting hemmed in at their own end, but it's not as much as last year or the year before. It's definitely on the upswing.
Okay, great. Another little pain point for the Blackhawks this year has been the power play. Now they did finally cash in. They had one opportunity. They cashed in against the Senators, but before that, it was tough sledding on that power play. Burakovsky was a change, right? They moved him up to that top unit. I guess just thoughts on the power play and that move of moving Burakovsky and what you saw from that one power play that cashed in the other night.
Well, the power play in the NHL is such a fickle beast. I mean, one day you look like you're just unstoppable. You're going to score on every power play, and then you have a stretch where it just five guys look like they've never even put ice skates on before. And the Hawks have had both of those this year. They went through a stretch where they scored a power play and goal in three straight games, and then they went 1 for 13. And that game against the Kings on Sunday, it hit rock bottom. I mean, they had five power plays in that game. The first four generated one shot combined over the four. They couldn't even get the puck in the zone. So that was the move to put Burakovsky on that top unit. And he's the best player on this team right now at zone entries. He's just so smooth of getting the puck in the zone. He doesn't, he's just such a good skater through the neutral zone, and he's direct, and he just gets the puck in. He didn't have that chance. They only had the one power play, and it only lasted 16 seconds. But part of the reason it worked is because they won the initial face-off, and that's been a problem on power plays too. If you lose that first face-off, the puck's out of the zone, and 20 to 30 seconds are gone up before you even get a chance to set up. So they won the face-off. He made the pass across the ice to Bedard for the goal. Burakovsky did. He's got great vision, and that zone entries. So it was a very logical move, and so far it's been perfect.
Yeah, one for one, perfect.
Hey,
Batting a
it's 100.
thousand.
It's 100% in the books.
Exactly. Okay, another personnel change. Lucas Reichel out of town. They ship him off for a draft pick. Just thoughts, breakdown of that trade, sending Reichel out of town.
Excuse me. Man, getting all choked up thinking about the Lucas Reichel era. It was unfortunate that it never worked for Lucas here. I'm a big fan of Lucas Reichel, just not as a person. He's a good kid. I got to know him a bit down in Rockford when I was still covering AHL games, and easy kid to root for. Puts in the work, has the talent, has the ability, but just for whatever reasons, it wasn't working here. He came on to the scene at the end of the 22-23 season and had that stretch at the end of the year where I think he had 12 points in 8 games, and it just looked like, there he is. That's the kid that we're all expecting. And then the 2 years since, it just couldn't work. And some people will say, well, he was put on the fourth line all season. True, but he never did anything to warrant getting off that fourth line. And when he did get chances to play with Connor Bedard or in the top six, he wasted them. It just wasn't there for him. He has the speed, but so many times he would have the speed, enter the zone, and then skate himself right out of a scoring chance because he has zero vision. He'd get the puck in the zone and have no idea what to do with it. Couldn't anticipate where his teammates were going to be. So in the end, it was time for a change. You know, and let's face it, he was the top prospect here for a few years, but this prospect pool has gotten so much better under Kyle Davidson with all those first round picks, and all those kids immediately jumped him in the organizational depth chart. Lucas Reichel's skill set, he has to be on the top six. He's not a bottom six forward. He just doesn't play that way, at least not now. He needs to embrace that style, I think. And a top six spot just wasn't going to happen in Chicago with who they have here now and who's on the way. So disappointing for sure, but I'll be rooting for him even though he's with the Canucks. I hope he figures it out and succeeds. 3 years ago, if you would have said Lucas Reichel was going to bust out here, you'd have been like, oh man, that's a huge disappointment. Now it's with, Bedard and Nazar here and all these young forwards on the way, it doesn't sting nearly as much as it would have a couple of years ago.
Sure thing. Um, just through 10 games, Blackhawks again, 5-3-2. Spencer Knight playing out of his mind. We've seen the improvements. We've seen the speed. Blashill's gotten them playing. Do these 10 games change your expectations for the Blackhawks at all this year?
Yeah, a bit. I'm not printing playoff tickets yet. They still got a long way to go. This 6 game road trip they got coming up is going to tell us a lot about who this team really is. 6 straight road games. You've got some tough ones. Winnipeg off to another good start. They were the President's Trophy last year, best team in the league. You've got Edmonton on this trip. You've got the Red Wings who've been playing good. It's kind of funny. They start this trip against Jonathan Taves. They end this trip against Patrick Kane. If he's back in the lineup, he's missed a few games. So this trip will give us a better idea of who this team really is. Were these first 10 games a lot of smoke and mirrors, or are they a fringe playoff team? They're on pace for 98 points right now, which would have got them in the playoffs last year. Long way to go, but it's okay to have better expectations. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but if they somehow finish with 80 points, that's almost a 20-point improvement. That's huge. But they're more competitive than they've been in a long time. They're in every game. They're fast. They're fighting for each other. They've bought in the Jeff Blashill system, so they're a young, fast team playing with confidence, and that's a team that can win on any night against any team. Some of these guys just don't know any better. Just go out there and do your thing, and that's a good thing. So I think the expectations have been raised a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I still, I think the playoffs are is still a lot at this point to ask
Yeah.
for, but who knows? If they keep this kind of play going, they'll be tough to knock down. But the more they win early, the less they have to win late. That takes pressure off of them. So,
Yeah.
what's the stat that they always talk about? 75% of the teams that are in a playoff spot at American Thanksgiving end up making the playoffs. So
Really?
we're only like 3 weeks away from Thanksgiving, which is crazy to say, 3 or 4 weeks away. But they keep this play going for another few weeks, and hey, you never know. But it's fun because the guys that matter when this team is going to be a playoff team again are doing all the heavy lifting. Your
Yeah.
Connor Bedard's, your Frank Nazar, Spencer Knight, the young defensemen are coming into their own. You got guys like Nick Lardis and Oliver Moore just tearing up the AHL right now. Like you're starting to see the fruition of all this patience and waiting over the past few years. And I said at the beginning of the year, if the Blackhawks finish with 90 points and just miss the playoffs, but it's Teuvo Teravainen and Tyler Bertuzzi and Ilya Mikheyev are your leading scorers, that's not a successful year in my book. If you finish with 75 points, but it's Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar and the kids doing all the hard work, that's a successful season.
I love that. I love that kind of reframe of everything and those reasons to be excited or reasons to be hopeful because you're absolutely right. It is the young guys. Going back to even the last 10, 15 games or whatever it was last season when it was like, oh, the young kids are playing and they're playing pretty good. It seems like it's a continuation of that. And you're also absolutely right. The points in October count just as much as the points in March.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like just for me personally, it seems like almost a best case scenario. And I don't know, maybe I'm going to use you as a sounding board. It's like maybe the Blackhawks are like the Canadians of last year who just completely outplayed expectations and they were in the mix and then they did make the playoffs. And I'm not saying that the Blackhawks need to make the playoffs for that to be a successful story, but I think if they play that way and they're like, in that playoff mix, in that playoff push, whether they make it or not, I still think that that would be exciting, especially coming off the heels of they didn't sign a Mitch Marner. They didn't, like they didn't make the huge splash move to send this thing, out into outer space, right? That huge catalyst type player to play next to Connor Bedard. So I guess that's just kind of where. What do you think? Last year's Habs a decent goal for this year's Blackhawks.
I don't know if they're quite ready for that yet. I would think maybe last year's Utah Mammoth is a better thing where they were there
Ooh,
and then towards the end they faded a little bit.
okay.
Um, but then this year they're one of the best teams in the division, and it's their young kids that are again taking that step in the right directions. Playing meaningful games the last 2 months of the season will be huge for this team because the Blackhawks haven't played a meaningful game past Halloween in almost a decade. Like they haven't had a game in mid-March at the United Center against, the Minnesota Wild that has playoff implications. That hasn't happened for a long time. And this team's going to need those. They're going to need that experience of like, hey, we're playing a game that the results matter because Connor Bedard hasn't had one of those games in the NHL yet. Frank Nazar hasn't had one of like there hasn't been a game where it's like you have to win this game. It's been like, hey, just don't embarrass yourself. Hey, we won, fun. Oh, we lost, but you scored 2 goals. Cool. So if they're still in that mix after the Olympic break, then that would be important for this team to kind of take that next step, regardless if they make it or not. You could argue that, hey, what does getting the eighth seed mean to this team? Oh, great, you can just go out and get, tromped by the Colorado Avalanche or the Winnipeg Jets in the first round. Does that really do anything for you? Maybe, maybe not. But I think just the experience of trying to get there will be huge.
Also, it totally does. Playoff hockey is not regular season hockey. Even if you get trounced, you're there, you felt it, you've experienced it, you got trounced, and now okay, this is what playoff hockey feels like, and this is how much farther or how much further we need to go so that we don't get trounced the next time we're here. So I would say getting an 8 seed and getting whooped and getting sent home packing would be a huge benefit to these Blackhawks. I'm all for it.
I mean, I would love to be able to talk about possible playoff matchups in April as opposed to what's the Blackhawks percentage of getting the number one overall pick.
Yep.
I'm tired of those conversations. I'm tired about, hey, who's the top prospect the Blackhawks should get this year? I don't care anymore. I don't think Kyle Davidson does anymore either. I think he's ready to be like, oh no, we have to draft 15th this year. So what? Or if there's a
Mhm.
guy he really wants, he'll just take his first round and second round picks and package them together and move up. We've seen him do that numerous times. Um, I think having that experience at the end of the year is more important than any prospect they could draft.
All right, last question for you. In this 5-3-2 start to this year, what's been your biggest surprise, or who has been your biggest surprise for the Blackhawks?
I have been pleasantly surprised with how well Tyler Bertuzzi has played. He's really been a catalyst for this team. When he was out against the Kings on Sunday, you saw what you were missing. You saw that was a team that was kind of clogging things up in the neutral zone and making it hard to get the puck in. And he's the guy that's going to just get in there and get in the corners and fight for that puck. I was not a big fan of the contract. I'm still not a big fan of his contract. It was an overpay, but I understand you have to, when you're in the Blackhawks situation, you have to overpay.
Mhm.
And I wasn't the biggest fan of his last season where he would have, 30 games or so where you're like, oh, okay, I see it now. And then you'd have 30 games where you'd go down the stat sheet and go, oh, yeah, he did play tonight. I didn't notice him once. That hasn't been the case. He's been fully engaged the entire season. Part of that has to do with Jeff Blashill. He had him as a coach before. Blashill was his coach in the AHL, and then Bertuzzi's best NHL season, 30 goals and 63 points, came with Jeff Blashill as the head coach of the Detroit Red Wings. So he's the Bertuzzi whisperer. But I think more of that has to do is with his performance this year is he's in a better role. He's not being asked to do more than he's capable of, and that was part of it last year. He was brought in here last year as the big free agent. Him and Tavo come here and unlock Connor Bedard, be this big offensive top line player. That's not who he is. Now he's in a role that best suits his skill set, and he's making the most of it. So, what I've seen out of him so far has been great, and hopefully, this engagement level is what we get all season.
Greg, thank you so much for the hockey knowledge. Puck talk is always fun. Hey, where can our fans find you on socials and stuff?
Well, you can just follow me on X at Greg Boysen. You can catch all my writing over at blackhawkup.com. And I do another Blackhawks podcast about once a week, Second Balcony. You can check that out as well. And I still pop up on the CHGO post game shows after home games. So I'm all over the place. Wherever I'm easy to find.
Go find them. Go find them, folks, for more hockey knowledge like this. Greg, thanks so much, man.
Anytime.
All right, thanks again to Greg. That was some great hockey insight. And honestly, like the Blackhawks are fun to watch again. I am having a ton of fun watching the Blackhawks. But after this break, don't go anywhere. We are talking about another surprisingly fun team in the city. The Bulls are 4-0. Can you believe it? I certainly cannot. But we got two guys coming up next who are going to take us all through the very surprising week of Bulls basketball. Don't go anywhere. All right, time for some Bulls talk. And joining me today, we have Austin McGee and Andrew Hanlon. They are the site experts for Pippen Ain't Easy. That's our Bulls site at Fansided. First off, Austin and Andrew, thank you for joining me. How are y'all doing today?
For sure. Doing really well.
Yeah,
How about you, Alex?
I'm great. I'm great. The Bulls are 4-0. I can't believe it. We got exciting stuff to talk about. Um, so let's just get right into it. The Bulls are 4-0. It's kind of crazy. Andrew, I'll start with you here. What's the biggest reason for this seemingly for me I'm surprised. For me I'm surprised for this surprising 4-0 start to the season.
yeah, for sure. Surprising. Might cheat on this one and go with two reasons, like a 1A and 1B. Tre Jones for sure has been um, a revelation. Possibly like the one of the free agent signings of the offseason, I think. He's just been incredible. He was efficient last year when he came to Chicago, and he's carried that over, playing more minutes in the starting lineup. He's been just as efficient. Crazy good on defense, with steals and everything. He's been really good. And then the bench, I would say, even without Kobe White in the lineup, so Tre Jones is starting. Herder's been really good off the bench. Io's been really good. So yeah, I would say a combination of Tre Jones and the bench for sure.
Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely going to echo what Andrew said there with Tre Jones. League leading 3 steals per game. That's pretty awesome. Bulls needed defense, so that's huge there. Io's return has been pretty awesome to see. He had his first major surgery last at the tail end of last year, so him returning to form and even better. Pretty exciting, and yeah, just that overall balance and the depth. So Andrew went there with the bench, which has been really good. Everyone can just be swapped out at any given time, and there's not really a decrease in play. Even Josh Giddey sat at the tail end of the Bulls' third game, didn't even play the last 5 or 6 minutes, and you couldn't even really tell just because how well everyone's paired together and just the fluidity the offense flows with whoever's on the court.
Love it. Now, okay, we're all excited. We're all thinking like, okay, Bulls are back, baby. No more play in. It's time to lock up that sixth seed. However, it's only been 4 games, so we should probably relax a little bit. There are 78 left. Austin, what are some potential pitfalls that the Bulls might run into that will not only knock them out of the playoff conversation, but might have them headed to the lottery?
There is, first off, the huge crowd that is clamoring that the Bulls' three-point defense, it's unreasonable. Opponents are shooting like 26% from the three-point line against the Bulls. So everyone's like, they're just missing threes. They're going to start hitting because on the flip side, Chicago allows the most points in the paint in the league per game. They allow over 60 points in the paint. So there's kind of that give and take there. But when you look at it, top defenses are also good at defending three pointers, which obviously three pointers are such a big emphasis in today's NBA. But if that 3-point percentage starts creeping up and they continue allowing a boatload of points in the paint, that defense is not going to look as pretty because they already don't force turnovers. So that could be a huge pitfall there.
Andrew, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that. I'm a little worried that the defense is kind of a flash in the pan sort of thing. Like you said, it's only 4 games, and this roster isn't exactly, loaded with stoppers or rim protectors, like Austin said. So I kind of wonder that that might come back down to earth a little bit. And then the other thing I was thinking of is their depth on the inside at center. It's been okay so far with some of the other bench guys stepping up and carrying things. But Vucevic is 35, approaching 1,000 career games, 15th season. He's been incredibly durable for his entire career, but with his age, I'm a little worried that he might kind of fall apart too, or if he gets injured, we're already seeing Zach Collins is hurt. Their backup center is Jalen Smith, who's 215 pounds, soaking wet. So there's not a lot of depth up front. Vucevic is super important. So if he goes down, there's not a lot of ways the Bulls can fill that spot.
Now, you guys both mentioned the defense. Just following up on that, the team brought in Isaac Okoro, right? They ship out Lonzo Ball to bring in Isaac Okoro. And the offense has always kind of been a question, but it's like, okay, at least he'll play some solid D. So I'll just toss this out to both of you guys. And Andrew, if you want to kick us off, like, has Okoro brought it on the defensive end in your guys' opinion to at least help in that regard? If you guys are worried about the defense, right, and as this is the one thing that could bring the Bulls down, is Okoro at least kind of rising that tide for the entire team, like a rising tide lifts all boats, kind of that deal?
Yeah, I think he's been good on defense. It's a little hard to keep him on the floor based on how bad he's been on offense. If he could make a shot, that would be awesome. It kind of seems like he can't make anything. So he's helped defensively. I think he's made an impact, kind of as a team defender and as an individual defender. Um, but it's just, yeah, it's kind of hard to keep him on the floor at the moment, especially with the way, like I said earlier, Herter's been playing off the bench in his spot, and when they go small, they're just so much better offensively. It's kind of canceling out his impact on defense a little bit.
Yeah, Okoro, the offense is tough. He didn't score over the first few games. So when he finally did, that was to say the least, it was remarkable. But defensively, he does add that point of attack defender that Chicago desperately needed. Didn't really have a guy like that last year. Lonzo, he's a good team defender and whatnot, but they got 30 games out of him. Okoro is a lot bigger. He's probably a little bit shorter than Lonzo, actually, but he's 225 pounds. So they threw him on Paolo Banchero. Um, he's guarded point guards. He could kind of defend positions 1 through 4, to be honest. So that really does help a lot, a lot. But still, there is the hesitancy when you think of a rim protector that the Chicago Bulls lack. So it's kind of like once that first line of defense has gotten past, who's going to be there to deter any shot attempt?
Gotcha. Now obviously this team is like it's pretty much a young core other than Vooch, right? Who 35, as you mentioned. I'm curious you guys' thoughts on Josh Giddey emerging really as the leader of this young core pretty much since the Zach LaVine trade last year, right? Ever since Zach LaVine left for the Kings, he's turned into like a triple double threat every single night. And now with Kobe White out, it seems like Giddey has been the guy leading the charge, except for that first game when it was all Vooch. So I'm just curious, your guys' thoughts on Josh Giddey being the leader for this thing. Can he be the guy to lead a charge? I'm not saying he needs to be the leader in points every night, right? You would imagine that Kobe White or sometimes Vooch or sometimes Ayo Dosunmu coming off the bench, like these guys should be the ones getting big buckets. But in terms of a leader, how do you feel about Giddey leading that charge? Austin, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I've been high on Giddy from the start. I love that 6'7", 6'8" jumbo point guard archetype. It's one of my favorites. The shooting was always a concern, defense is a concern, but to say you can't build around someone like that, it's a crazy thing to say because he can be slotted on like a power forward, so it's not like, he's absolute liability and he rebounds really well. So if you're having a guy getting 8 to 10 rebounds a game, that also helps for the fact that he is the primary initiator. So he can run an offense. I don't think there's a question about that. Leading a team has yet to be seen, but I think it's something that he can do. And like you mentioned, he doesn't have to lead the scoreboard. He doesn't have to average 20 something points to be the Bulls, best player in a sense. He can be 17, 8 and 8, something like that. And I still think he has the qualities, especially with an uptick in his driving this season to really make the defense crash, make people play, kick it out, be that type of facilitator and scorer to potentially, you know, lead the Bulls to, a mid 5, 6, 7, something like that seed.
Andrew?
Yeah, I he's been consistent, I guess. Last year after the All-Star break, he was really good, excellent. And it was kind of a question of whether he'd be able to carry that over to this season, playing against some tanking teams at the end of last year. His three-point shot was so good. Um, it was, yeah, a question of whether he could carry that over, and he's been good. He's been attacking the rim a lot more, like Austin said, getting to the free throw line more than he has in his career. The three-point stroke looks a lot better, kind of more like it did at the end of last season, as opposed to his first few seasons in the league. And I think it's really important to remember that he's 22. He's played a lot of games and he's played postseason games, but he's still so young that he's got a lot of room to grow, I think, both in terms of his skill set on the court, that three-point shot, but also as a leader. It's the Bulls are young for sure, but he's still got some growing to do, and I think that bodes really well for the Bulls going forward on and off the court.
Okay, love it. All right, my last question for you all, because again, we talked about expectations maybe not being super duper high for this Bulls team, yet here they are, 4-0. I have a feeling I know who the answer to this question is, but I will ask it anyways. Andrew, who is the unsung hero of the Chicago Bulls through the first week of the season?
I think the obvious answer would be Tre Jones. I'm gonna zag a little bit.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with Vooch. He's been averaging 18 and 13. He's been facilitating a lot, hitting open threes, stretching the floor. Like always, he's been excellent rebounding and in the post. But I think he's been just a really, really connective piece. He's a guy that you might not notice. He's not, Buzelis flying down the lane and throwing down dunks or whatever, but he's just steady and he's still steady. After this long, it's really impressive to see, and he's been really, really important for them.
Austin, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, Tre Jones is the obvious answer. Vooch is also a fantastic one. Um, it would have to be Tre Jones, though. So, before to kick off the preseason when he wasn't starting, we saw real quick that the Bulls didn't really have enough playmaking on the court. And with Josh Giddey being the lone guy taking the ball up the court, it really just wasn't possible. He's not a quick twitch ball handler, of course, at 6'8", plays more of like a herky jerky style. So Tre Jones has definitely been a huge factor, just taking pressure off Giddy, probing the lane, driving, defense too. He started on Desmond Bain. He defended Trey Young. So there's more to Tre Jones than we thought. We thought he was just maybe a 15, 20-minute backup point guard, 8 points, 4 or 5 assist guy. But he could kind of be a 13, 14, couple rebounds, couple steals, 8 assist guy a game, it seems like.
Love it. Awesome. Andrew, thank you so much for the basketball knowledge. Uh who knows? Maybe the next time we talk, the Bulls will be like 10-0. That would be that would
Yeah.
be crazy. But you know what? Vibes are high. Vibes are high. So be sure to follow Andrew and Austin's work on Pippin Ain't Easy for more in-depth Bulls analysis and stand up to date on everything after every game. So Austin, Andrew, thanks so much for joining me today, guys.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, thank you again to Austin and Andrew for joining me for some great Bulls talk. Be sure to check them out on Pippin Ain't Easy, like I said earlier. They have all sorts of awesome Bulls content going out every single day, so check that website out. But before we get out of here, we got to talk Bears. We got to talk CJ Gardner Johnson. You know, there was all this talk saying, like, hey, should the Bears add a cornerback at the trade deadline? Who are some trade targets? Da, 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 da. Kyler Gordon is on IR. Jalen Johnson is out for practically the whole season. Tyreek Stevenson's banged up. They need to add a cornerback. Well, Bears did add a cornerback, just not through the trade. Through the trade deadline, they did it with a guy who was looking for work, a guy who had already been on 2 teams this season. That was CJ Gardner Johnson. Now, the move has kind of been panned by some people because of attitude issues or the fact that he's a safety. I saw a lot of that quote unquote safety because that's what he's played over the last 3 years. And if you following Bear Goggles on, you would know that we were like, hey, should probably expect this guy to play in the middle because that is where he played for Dennis Allen and the Saints. That's right. He already played for Dennis Allen and the Saints. The Saints are the team that drafted CJ Gardner Johnson. And that's where he got his start, playing in the middle until he got traded to Philly. And they moved him to safety, and that's where he played for the Lions and back with the Eagles again when he won the Super Bowl. Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. He's a Super Bowl winning player. So personally, I'm all for the move. I think it could help the team a lot, right? Kyler Gordon is already out for at least 3 more games. Josh Blackwell's I don't want to say the last line of defense there right now because obviously there are some other dudes in the wings. Nick McLeod can play in the slot if needed, but they're getting real thin. So you get a guy who has had success playing in the slot, who has had success playing with Dennis Allen, and you just plug him right in the middle. It's not like he's going to need to learn that system. He's familiar with the system. I'm sure it will not take him very long to get reacclimated to Dennis Allen's defense. So on the field, it helps. The other thing it helps with is playmaking. This is a team that's been one of the best takeaway teams in the NFL. And by the way, this is a guy who has taken the ball away a lot in the NFL, 18 interceptions. So you add him to the mix, you are now adding to a team's strength. You're making a strength even stronger. That's great. And here's what's also really important. The Bears have not been a great rushing defense throughout the year. They have had moments where the rush defense has been good. They have had moments when the rushing defense has been historically awful. Now, CJ Gardner Johnson in the middle of that defense is a guy who gets his nose into the play. He is not afraid to play near the line of scrimmage. He is not afraid to mix it up and bring running backs down to get in the pile. That's what the Bears need. The Bears need more of that. More hats to the football, more guys willing to do the dirty work in the run game. He can help there. There's another area in which CJ Gardner Johnson can help this team where they need some more help. The Bears are bottom 10 in sacks right now. And Dennis Allen, back in the Saints when he was his defensive coordinator, used to like to blitz CJ Gardner Johnson. He blitzed him something like 83 times 3 seasons. And then his blitz rate dropped off a lot as soon as he left the Saints. His other coaches weren't sending him. DA sent him a bunch. He got 3 sacks with the Saints. So again, DA loves disguising where the pressure is coming from. This gives him another tool in his toolbox for that pass rush. Now let's talk about the attitude. That's been kind of a key point for a lot of people. Oh, this guy's a locker room cancer. He's been on so many teams in such a little amount of time. Calling a guy a locker room cancer, is like quite a charge. Quite a charge. Don't know about that. He spoke about his time with the Ravens. He was there for like a week. He spoke with his time with the Texans. He was only there for a few games. The reports that came out, the way he addressed it, basically just wasn't a good fit. The reports out of the Texans camp, out of Texas beat writers, were that he was not happy with his role there and wanted to trade somewhere that would use him, that he thought better to his strengths. The Ravens situation, quote unquote, not a good fit. Again, DA knows this guy. DA knows how to use him. That fit shouldn't be a problem. And if DA knows what buttons to push, knows how to get him with the program, you can avoid some of those perceived issues that people may have with him. And then here's the last part. Here's the last part of this. I want some guys with some attitude. I want a cornerback who believes he is the best nickel corner in the NFL, something that he said a lot in New Orleans and was upset when people in New Orleans weren't saying it. I think that's a great quality to have. If you are tasked with shutting down Jamar Chase, as he might be on this Sunday, I want you to believe you're the best nickel corner in the league. Football teams need high character players. You need your Joe Toonies. You need your Roma Dunzes. You need I could go on and on and on and on. The Bears have a lot of high character players. Caleb Williams, Cole Kmet. Like I said, I can go on and on and on and on. I think you need some MFers too. I think you need some guys who will chirp. Guys like Jaquan Brisker, right? I'm not saying he's an MFer, but these are guys who are loud, who are trash talkers. These are guys who are going to try to demoralize you every chance they get. And by the way, we already know that CJ Gardner Johnson is an elite trash talker because, yes, he is that guy who baited the Bears into punching him twice in one season. That's right. Javon Wims, who sucker punched him in week 8, and then Anthony Miller, who sucker punched him in the wild card round in 2020. Twice. This guy got him with his elite trash talk. So yes, the Bears have a high character locker room, high character program, and they're building a new locker room culture from Ben Johnson. But if that culture is as strong as Ben Johnson, as the Bears want it to be, believe it is, say it is, then they should be able to absorb and assimilate CJ Gardner Johnson into that locker room. The program should be able to say, hey, this is the program, get with the program. Not adding a little elite trash talk should, that never hurts. That never hurts to add a big talker, in my opinion. So I'm a fan of the CJ Gardner signing. Let's see how it plays out. And it's kind of a low stakes thing. If it doesn't work out, you can move on. Kyler Gordon should be healthy. The Bears hope by the time his stay on IR is done. So they view it as a short-term IR thing, not a long-term IR thing. So at worst, you move on just like the Baltimore Ravens did. I think it is a low-risk, potentially high-reward move. Now we'll see how it all plays out. So thanks for listening to the Windy City podcast. Once again, I am Alex Shapiro. Stay with us. On Sunday, I will be joined by Kenneth Davis once again as we break down Bears Bengals. We hope to see you then.